Hello, hello, hello. I am back. Yep, it's been about a month. Sorry about that. Life has gotten a little crazy and work's a little crazy. As I mentioned earlier, I'm getting to work some new hours, which has made things a little bit more difficult. But yeah, I'm here, and this is the Engineering Success Podcast, episode 15. No interview this week, but I promise you, I am working on lining up an interview. I am just doing a lot of things right now. But before we get into the rest of the podcast, I'm going to do the episode shout out. Shout out to sabeanandcheese.net for supporting the podcast as a top tier supporter. Yes, for $10 a month. You can also join sabeanandcheese.net, the premier San Antonio bean and cheese taqueria review website. You can join them as a top tier supporter and get a shout out at the beginning of every single episode of the Engineering Success Podcast. And for $5 a month, I'll give you a shout out at the first episode of every single month. So this month would have been a good month to do that. And on top of that, if all one-time donations, I'll give you a shout out too, as long as you're nice. So thanks, guys. Now let's get into the first segment of the podcast. This week in good news is going to be this week in good advice. And this one is from Reddit, r/civil engineering. Yeah, because I troll all of those pages. And before I read it, I don't know if you'll notice there's actually a thunderstorm going on in the background. So I hope that there isn't too much background noise coming from that. But if there is, we're just blessed to get some rain down here in San Antonio lately. So that's been very fortunate. So here we go. To the young ones, from my recent experiences with employees, I am finding that those who we find to be the most valuable are also, unsurprisingly, the ones who share some very learnable talents. So let's find out what those learnable talents are. They go to say, learn how and when to ask questions. 1A, remember or note down the answer to those questions because asking the same question multiple times is not cool. Yeah, it's okay to ask the same question twice sometimes, but in general, if you've had a question answered, it shows great diligence and skill and care if you write down the answers and not constantly bombarding the person who's mentoring you with the same question over and over again. Next one, learn how to track your own work, i.e. what you did and why. You need to be able to answer those questions for your entire career. That is definitely the case. Whenever you design something, maybe a customer or a client will reach out to you and say, hey, why did you do that? Why did you make that decision? Or whenever your project manager is presenting a proposal to an executive at the team and trying to say, hey, this is how many hours we've allocated for this, then they need to be able to say why. So tracking the paper trail, it definitely will make it a lot easier for you in the future whenever you have to explain to somebody inevitably why you did what you did. Or if a customer has a question, that says, I don't really agree with the solution or how long it took you to do this. I'm not going to accept your change order. Your justification and your paper trail is always going to be what's going to help you out. But then again, change orders, maybe you should get the change order approved before doing the work in the first place, but that's neither here nor there. Next one, learn to look ahead in the job sequence so that you are not the one in the office that asks that question. Be the one answering that one. And that's a great point. So, look at the life of the project that you're working on and see what's coming up and anticipate what's going to need to be worked on. Next one, your boss needs you to move the job forward. The more of that you do, the more valuable you become. Yeah, don't bog it down. Next one, be irreplaceable, and you will more than likely be the one with the job when the economy corrects itself again. Yeah, I think that's pretty good advice. Be irreplaceable. I will contend that no matter how irreplaceable we think we are always replaceable, and that's just something to keep in mind when advocating for yourself. Nobody's irreplaceable. The company will do what it can to move on, but so again, look out for yourself. But at the same time, yes, get those valuable skills and be somebody that is a subject matter expert or somebody that other people go to, and you will find yourself having a lot more stability generally than others. All right. This is another bit of good news. This is from our mechanical engineering. This one's titled Job Offer. And they say, so I've just received my first job offer that I have to make a decision on in the next week. I graduate this December with my bachelor's in Mech E, and I did an internship as a process engineer in a steel mill. The offer is to work as a process engineer at a steel mill, and for the first 2 years, I will go around from department to department, learning all the ins and outs of the company, process, and industry as a whole. The pay would be about $68,000 in a state with no income tax and a 5% bonus at the end of the 2022 fiscal year. The company matches 4.5% for my 401k, and the area is just outside a lower cost of living city. I could live 30 minutes away and be in a small town. I really enjoyed my internship and want to pursue a career in the heavy industry, so I'm super excited about the offer but want some outside opinions. Well, here's my outside opinion. It's a great offer, and you should definitely consider taking it. The pay is competitive, and the cost of living is low. The bonus is cool. Not all engineers have the opportunity to earn bonuses straight out of school. And the other thing that I think that is really exciting is that it's kind of a rotational program, and that means that the company definitely wants to invest in you, and they're not necessarily just trying to extract dollars out of you, extract product out of you right away. They recognize that you have potential, and they want to invest in you and let you learn about the company in many different ways, and then be able to contribute to the company. So I want to say congratulations to user TMMman99. Shout out to you. That's a great offer, and I would definitely take that if I were in your position. All right. We're going to do a quick little ad break, and we're going to come back to the advice section of the podcast. Ad there. Let's go into the advice. This one's from our engineering students. It says, Mechanical Engineering Junior rejected from all internship applications. What's wrong with me? They go on to say, howdy all. So I'm a junior studying mechanical engineering at Pennsylvania State University. I have been applying to online internships like crazy and networking as much as I can here at school. But here's the thing. Even after all the personal recommendations and applications, I have been rejected from all internship positions I apply for. My resume has been looked over by the Career Services Center at my school, and I would say my credentials are just fine. 3.95 cumulative GPA, 4.0 major GPA, prior relevant internship experience at a small engineering company, founder/president of engineering club on campus, currently work in the College of Engineering at my school. The dean of the College of Engineering wrote my letter of recommendation, and I'm also building a race car from scratch that I use as a personal project example on my resume. I'm still applying and networking, but at this point I'm getting more rejections in than application submissions out. Any advice that might help my situation? Best, Connor. All right, Connor. So, first of all, I want to say I commend you. You definitely have a great resume, especially, you already have an internship that you've completed. You're involved in clubs on campus. You have relationships with your professors. You sound like you're doing all the things right. So, and your resume has been looked over by Career Services Center, and you've done all the things that are right on paper. So, first of all, I wouldn't get too beat up about it. But here's a couple things that I would do if I were you. The first thing I would do is I would look at the R engineering resumes subreddit and look and see what those people think about your resume, because I don't know. I mean, Penn State might have a career services center that's specific to engineering and that they're good at it. And I'm not here to bash my own experience, because I think that the people from my career services center did a lot of things really well. But the style of resumes that my career services center had me putting together were not, at least at first, were not exactly what people that I ended up meeting in the industry thought my resumes should look like. So I would maybe look at a engineering specific kind of mindset towards your resume and see if that can help you out. Another thing that I would recommend is, you have your resume, it's been looked over by your career services center, but I would recommend that maybe don't use that one resume for everything. depending on what kind of positions you're applying for, you might want to tweak your resume a little bit and highlight a couple different keywords and move certain projects up higher and earlier on in the resume review than others, depending on what you're trying to apply for. There's, all different types of mechanical engineering jobs that you can do with a mechanical engineering degree. So what I recommend doing is kind of building a larger CV and then giving yourself the flexibility to emphasize different things in your resume depending on the position you're applying for. Another thing I would recommend focusing on is, I didn't hear you mention cover letters. A lot of people, they kind of take the same approach with their cover letters that they take to their resumes, and they don't really put much energy into customizing or specializing their cover letters. And that's something that I would recommend doing as kind of the next step. I mean, you're already networking personally, you're applying a lot online. So really, I mean, you're doing the right things, but maybe that's one other way that you can kind of step up your applications. And then another way you can step up your applications is, I know you're saying you're applying a lot online and you're doing a lot of networking. My question to you is, do you have any people in industry that work for the companies that you're applying for that are personally sending your resumes along? They're personally giving you a referral in whatever kind of the company's referral program is doing, or even better, like what I've done for a couple of my peers that are graduates of my university, is I've asked them for their resumes and then found the hiring manager at my company and said, hey, XYZ email about why this person would be a good fit. Here's the resume. You should consider them. And I will tell you that every single one of those times that I've done that, that person has at least had their resume looked at. And whenever you're applying through online portals, it's really easy to get auto-rejected from the portal just for whatever criteria that they've set up in their portal. So doing that extra step and getting your resume and making sure that a recruiter or an evaluator or a talent management person is looking at your resume, that will increase your chances of pull through. So again, I know that's not too much advice. I don't want to give you a bunch of different things to do because you're doing a lot of things really well. You're networking it like crazy. You're applying online like crazy. Again, I would just focus on specializing your applications a little bit more for everything you're applying for, and then getting that special touch of trying to get some individual person to push your resume in for you. And that can be reaching out to your dean of engineering at your university and say, hey, who do we know that works at this company? All right, can you give them my resume and have them send it to a hiring manager? I mean, it could be just as simple as that, but doing that next step, I think that you'll set yourself up for some great success. But again, Connor, you're doing great. You got a lot of good things going for you, and I know that you are going to land an internship and you're going to be a great asset to any company. In fact, send me your resume. You seem like you're really astute, and if you want to work in engineering consulting, maybe I'll forward yours along. All right. Next one. This one comes from R Ask Engineers. Mechanical engineering versus industrial engineering bachelor's degree. Hello, I am a senior at high school, nice, soon to be applying to colleges, and I can't decide between these two majors. Man, I wish that whenever I was in high school, I was on Reddit. I think I wish I was on Reddit when I was in high school, because Reddit is awesome. It's such a cool community, and I just recently discovered it, actually. I wasn't even on Reddit throughout college. The only time I was in Reddit in college was to get links to watch sporting events legally. Yeah. But I think it's great that you're on Reddit in high school and you've already found the engineering subreddit and you're asking people about their careers. All right, carry on. Industrial seems to be perfect because it is broad and it is a broad and growing field. However, mechanical engineering seems to be broad as well. It is. I also think industrial engineering is better because it applies engineering in businesses and other processes. Correct me if I am wrong. I hope someone with experience might be able to give me advice. Thanks. English isn't my native language. Well, shout out to you. Your English is great. So I'm a little biased because I study mechanical engineering, and I will tell you that now what I do is not necessarily considered super technical. It is definitely more on the business commercial side of what my company does. And the fact that I didn't get an industrial engineering degree and the fact that my background is mechanical definitely didn't prevent me from being able to get into that kind of path with my company. And I wouldn't think it would do that for you either whenever you're on your journey. I would say that it, I think that industrial engineering is a very good degree program, and industrial engineers are very important and very valid careers. And I think that a lot of companies really need industrial engineers. So if you get an industrial engineering degree, you're definitely going to have a lot of opportunities to get jobs. I will say though, and this is something that has been jokingly told to me by friends of mine that are industrial engineers, that they joke that they're not really quote unquote engineers in the same sense as mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, chemical engineers, process engineers, civil engineers, and the fact they don't really do the same kind of like physical designing. Like I took like heat transfer, thermodynamics, electronics, all these like well, not really electronics, but like high frequency electromagnetism, all these different engineering electives that I took were not electives that my peers that had industrial engineering took. Now, somebody might be able to write in and tell me I'm wrong, and if I'm wrong, please do so. Tell me I'm wrong. But industrial engineering, from the way that I understand, is all about like efficiency and process improvement. And again, industrial engineering is awesome, and you can get a lot of really cool business experience. Yes, it lends itself well to business because you're optimizing things. So I say all that to say that I would recommend mechanical because my background is mechanical, and it's definitely a lot more technical, and I think it'll give you a lot more opportunities. I think that most mechanical engineers can get a lot of jobs doing things similar to what industrial engineers do, but it definitely doesn't go the same way around. I don't believe you can get a professional engineering license in industrial engineering. I don't think you're eligible to take the fundamentals of engineering exam if you get a degree in industrial engineering, but you are eligible as a mechanical engineer. Well, let me double check that though. Can you take the FE with an industrial engineering degree? Am I wrong? Whoa, I'm wrong. Um, I think I'm wrong. Oh, this is cool. Okay. Um, okay. Let me know. No, I need to double check this. ABET accredited degrees. Graduates from ABET accredited bachelor level engineering programs offered by regionally accredited institutions in the United States and nationally accredited institutions. They don't accept certification training or doctoral programs. So what engineering programs do they accept? Okay, they even accept engineering technology programs. Okay, what eligibility requirements? ABET accepted degrees. Come on. What? Come on. All right, let me stall. While I'm looking this up, I'm going to tell you about frogs. Frogs hop and they skip and they bounce. Okay, there we go. University of Southern Mississippi has a industrial engineering technology bachelor's of science degree online, and it is accredited by ABET. Okay, now what engineering degrees are eligible for the fundamentals? a graduate of an engineering program or related program certified by the board. Come on. That is interesting. Okay, well, I think I'm wrong. So I'll just take that L and move on. All right. So I don't know. I get there is some stigma. I will say that there's some stigma that industrial engineering is not true engineering. I say all that to say that, but you can have a great career as an industrial engineer. You have a great career. You can have a great career as a mechanical engineer. I will personally argue that you have a little bit more options with a mechanical engineering degree. I encourage you to look up all your favorite companies and look up their CEOs and find out what their degree was in. And I think you'll find a lot of them have mechanical or electrical or chemical engineering degrees. You'll be surprised how many of them have traditional engineering degrees. And yeah, like for example, let's look up the CEO of Microsoft. CEO of Microsoft is Satya Nadella. All right. And let's go to Satya's Wikipedia. His degree is in... He has a Bachelor's of Engineering from Manipal Institute of Technology. All right. Cool. And it didn't say what he got his in, but that's an engineering degree. All right, let's look up another company. What company? Let's look up Kraft. CEO of Kraft. The CEO of Kraft Heinz is Miguel Patricio. Let's find out what Miguel Patricio studied in college. Miguel Patricio studied... Oh, he's a businessman. Let's check out his LinkedIn. He's from the greater Chicago area. Nice. I know a lot of people that are from the greater Chicago area. Miguel Patricio is the CEO at Kraft Heinz Company. Previously worked at Anheuser-Busch InBev. And his degree is in, Bachelor's of Business Administration. I'm wrong. Okay, let's do one more. All right. Coca-Cola CEO. Coca-Cola CEO. Come on, prove me right. All right, it's James Quincy. All right, James Quincy. Let's look at James Quincy's LinkedIn. Or I clicked on the Coca-Cola webpage. And now... Come on. Oh, I'm going to be wrong again, aren't I? Yeah, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. I'm being too... I think I'm being a little bit too aggressive with the companies that I'm choosing. Yeah, I can't find it. Okay, but you look at like the CEO of like Texas Instruments. They do a lot of business stuff, but Rich Templeton, the CEO of Texas Instruments, has a degree in electrical engineering, which makes sense. They make electronical things. The CEO of Lockheed Martin, they make technical things. I bet the CEO of Lockheed Martin, Jim Tyslet, has a degree in engineering. And this is the last one, I promise. I just wanted to get a couple right in a row before I retire away. CEO of Lockheed Martin, Jim Tyslet, LinkedIn.com, says, "It is a privilege to work along some of the greatest minds in the world." Yep. United States Air Force Academy, Engineering and International Relations. So, yeah. Pretty cool. All right, I'll get off that tangent now. But anyways, I say, electrical engineers, I mean, regardless of what your engineering degree is in, engineers, people know engineers solve problems, and engineers find themselves working their way up in leadership positions. So if you really want to get into the business side of things, I really wouldn't get too hung up on what engineering degree you get and which ones will relay better to business and which ones won't. So, all right. That was a lot of time. All right, next one. Stuck in a crossroad, need some advice. Hello to all my fellow engineers. I need some advice. Long story short, appreciate you making your story short. I went to school and obtained my degree in electrical engineering. Wow, you can become the CEO of TI. I'm really good in math and I wanted to make a lot of money. Nice, which is why I chose the engineering field. My school only offered 3 types of engineering, one of them being electrical. Now that I am a recent graduate, I am stuck in a crossroad because I don't know what to use my degree towards. Electrical engineering wasn't a big interest of mine. It was very theoretical and abstract. I say all that to say I need some advice. I don't know what route to take with my EE degree. I don't know if I really want to pursue a career in engineering. Any advice would help. I don't have anyone to ask for advice since I'm the only engineer in my family. Thank you. Wow. Well, first off, kudos. I mean, most people that go to school for a degree in engineering just for the purpose of making money don't graduate. And honestly, I think a lot of people shame people for wanting to go into engineering to make money, but engineering is a great field to make money in. And people can have whatever motivation they want. And honestly, I mean, what's the point of having a career? To make money to provide for your family. Now, make a lot of money, I mean, depends on what your definition of a lot is. But you don't know what route to take with your EE degree. I think there's a lot of routes that you can take with your EE degree. Obviously, you understand it well enough to be fluent in it because you got a degree in it. And yeah, it's very theoretical. I will say, though, there's a lot let me just list off a couple things that I know people that have electrical engineering degrees, what they do now. I have a friend that works as a software engineer and designs software for USAA. And he does a bunch of cool stuff in the cloud, and he has a great time. And I'm hoping to get him on the podcast. I have another friend that also works for USAA as a software engineer, and he does some of their... I have a lot of friends with electrical engineering degrees that work at USAA. I have another friend that works for Cisco, and not friend, but people I know that work for Cisco, and they do I think they do like technical sales for Cisco. I know of people that have electrical engineering degrees that do technical sales for Texas Instruments. I mean, all these different companies that have engineering products need people to sell it, and some of them have entry-level sales roles, technical sales roles that you can do, and you can make great money doing that. But the reality is you have an engineering degree, and what that proves to an employer is you know how to solve problems, you're bright, and you have a good work ethic. So that really sets you up to do anything. Again, I'm not really I don't really currently design things. And I don't pretend like I do design things. I'm involved. I get to see the design process and I'm around it a lot, but I'm not the one physically designing things. So I guess you could say that I'm not using my engineering degree, but I manage projects. That's what I do. I manage projects, internal projects within my company, and my degree has set me up well for that. I'm good at solving problems, good at managing deadlines and difficult timelines and difficult relationships. Those are all things that I learned in my engineering program, and it set me up for success. And I have a greater understanding of how to run those projects than somebody that maybe doesn't have an engineering background, because I also get the context around it, and it's very fulfilling for me. We have engineers at my company that work in our commercial group that get involved with supporting the negotiation of contracts. I mean, there's so many things you can do with engineering degree. I mean, and I wouldn't get so hung up in using, quote unquote, using your degree to do something that's purely technical and purely engineering design, and really open yourself up to doing things that are interesting to you. It's okay to do a job that is interesting to you. This is much more interesting to me than sitting at a cube all day and staring at CAD. It just is. And that's okay. everybody has a different path, and most people with engineering degrees don't sit in a cube and do design all day or do R&D. That's just not the case. So I think you'll find, I encourage you to get an internship, or actually, wait, you already have your degree. Did you have an internship? Did you learn anything from any of your internships? I hope you had internships and you learned things and learned what you liked about engineering, what you didn't like. I hope you don't dislike engineering entirely, but if you do, even that, if that's the case, I mean, I know engineers that go into financial technology and they finance and become analysts for financial companies. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do. I have another friend that got an engineering degree and went to law school. I mean, again, now might become a patent attorney, or maybe she'll just be an attorney for a large engineering or consulting firm, or not. She could just be an attorney for a corporation. You can do anything with an engineering degree, and I hope that those are just a couple little things that encouraged you in different ways you could go, and I wish you the best of luck. All right, next one. Would you take a pay cut to work 4/10s as opposed to 5/8s? Recently, I was offered $5,000 less pay and salary, but the work schedule is Monday through Thursday, 4 to 10 schedule with 3 weeks of vacation and 15 days of PTO. At my current place, it is your typical 5/8s, 2 weeks vacation, and 10 days PTO. The new place is in a similar cost of living area, but in order to move to the new company, they will be paying me $5,000 in relocation costs. Personally, I really like this newer company, and the 4/10 schedule would be very nice as opposed to 5/8s. And more so, the extra 5 PTO days and an extra week of vacation is definitely worth it, in my humble opinion. IMHO. What are your guys' thoughts? All right, initial impressions. If I liked my current employer, I wouldn't take a pay cut to move to a new job and relocate. I mean, moving is a pain, and relocating and moving to a new city, and I have established roots where I am, but maybe you haven't done the same for yourself, but maybe that's not your situation. But moving's a pain and relocating is hard, and I wouldn't relocate for a pay cut. It would take a sizable pay increase for me to want to relocate with my company or outside of my company. So I think that I mean, it sounds like you really like the culture of the company, and you like that they have more PTO, and you like their work style. And I think that those are valid reasons to want to work at a different company, and maybe to evaluate if those are things that are enough of a reason for you to want to work for that company. But I wouldn't take a pay cut. I think that there's room for negotiation, especially if they're trying to poach you away from your current company. And I think simply saying, hey, this is interesting, but honestly, the compensation doesn't even line up with my current company. So I find it difficult to leave where I'm at. And just starting the conversation that way would be a good way for you to go, especially if you do want to leave your current company. Because it sounds like you are attracted a lot by the benefits. But no, you're working the same number of hours. I mean, and also, I mean, depending on where you work, even if you are working 5/8, I mean, if you've had to work long hours during the week, are you also working all day on Friday, or are you taking some time off? I get that there's a little more flexibility to never expecting to work Fridays, but I've met people that work on a 4/10 schedule but still have to work on Fridays. So again, I would ask some more questions. The first level question being, hey, it's really hard for me to move and take a new job for a pay cut. What can you do? And then another question is maybe do some research on Glassdoor and talk to people that work there and say, is it actually 4/10s? How many times have you come in and worked on Fridays? And I think that will help you make your decision. So I wish you the best of luck. All right, next question. This may sound like a stupid question. Can I list being a subreddit moderator on my Common App? This is on the R Applying to College subreddit. Yeah, I'm on all of them. Here we go. Advice, class of 2022, senior here. I've always been one of those R Wall Street bets kids. Since I was 14, I've been actively trading stocks in a custodial account. Nothing crazy, just toying around with a few $100 I saved through working. Around the time of the GameStop frenzy in January, I started to make subreddits with the ticker names of companies. Since then, I have created 60 plus different subreddits for investors to discuss individual stocks. These include Viacom, Tilray, CLNE, NNOX, HGen, BTBT, and many other publicly traded and pre-IPO companies. I've been very proud of myself for this. It's been crazy to see the growth in some of these subreddits, and I've given the platform to tens of thousands of people to discuss their real monetary investments. I was able to personally moderate posts and comments, which had a genuine effect on the prices of publicly traded companies. Okay. I personally think that this is a pretty interesting thing that admissions officers might find intriguing. It's nothing too crazy, but it's something I am super interested in and had a lot of fun doing. TLDR, I moderate a lot of subreddits. Yeah, you use the TLDR correctly because you know Reddit. First of all, shout out to you. That's really cool. Creating your own subreddits and being involved. And I think it's very unique and interesting, and especially if you want to go into a field of finance or any field, honestly. I think that an admissions officer will find that very unique and interesting. I think it's much more unique than some of the more generic stories that people give in their personal bios. I think that definitely is a core thing to who you are. You started doing it when you were 14, which is pretty darn cool. Also kind of scares me a little bit that the people I'm interacting with whenever I'm on those platforms are 14. No dish, no shade there. But I can't believe that those the people that are influencing people like me that are trying to invest their actual money. Now, people might crap on me for saying that I invest based on our Wall Street bets. Okay, I haven't. But I've considered it. But yeah, the only other thing I would say is whatever accounts that you're moderating these subreddits with, just make sure that they're not accounts that will get you in trouble or make you look bad. If they kind of do a little second level digging, just make sure you clean up the accounts. And yeah, definitely talk about this. I think that's really cool. And I mean, everybody knows about our Wall Street bets now. And to say that you played a pivotal part in it, I think that's really unique and interesting. All right, here we go. Next one. Want to start applying for summer internships. Do I include unrelated experience? I'm 29 and about to start my second year of university. I'm hoping to land a couple of summer internships to put me in a more favorable position when I graduate. They spell favorable in like the English way. That's cool. However, my previous work experience consists mainly of management positions in hospitality and retail. Should I include any of this on my resume or just start with a clean slate? Well, considering that's your only job experience, yes, I would definitely include that. It definitely shows that you know how to work in a professional environment and you know how to deal with, and again, you talk about hospitality and retail, you can talk about dealing with difficult clients and difficult people, and those are all typical interview questions that people ask anyway. So definitely, if you're trying to get an internship, try to set yourself apart. You're 29, you're different than people that are coming, straight out of high school going into university, that are applying for their first internship with no work experience potentially. So definitely include that on your resume, and definitely again, the question that I answered earlier, tailor your responses and how you highlight things from those experience towards the positions that you're applying for. If the job description says that you're going to be working a lot with clients, then talk about your experience working with clients and difficult people. Manage client relationships. You're a manager, you manage people. I don't expect to get a management level engineering role straight out of school or for an internship, obviously. But that definitely makes you stand out. So include that. And I avoided using another definitely by saying definitely to acknowledge the fact that I definitely didn't use definitely. Next one is a rant on our engineering students. Why do internships expect experience? Rant. I just got rejected from a hardware internship at Amazon for next summer. I literally haven't even started junior year yet, but they hire on a rolling basis and already opened next year's app. I haven't been on campus for over a year and haven't been able to take anything but core electrical engineering classes yet because of the curriculum's layout. I'm pretty sure a big portion of my rejection was my lack of experience, at least based on the interviewers' reactions. But seriously, how the frick am I supposed to have experience? And if they expect experience, why do they open apps so early? I have a year of courses ahead of me, and yet they're judging me on what I know right now. I just don't get it, and I'm really frustrated. All right. So first of all, it's Amazon. Amazon is it's a FANG. It's a very competitive company to work for, and they have the right to be selective and choose the best candidates. So it might not be a you thing, but if they have, 10,000 other people to consider for those 100 positions, and more than 100 of them already have internship experience working in software or working in hardware, then those people are just generally more attractive. They have more experience. They're better. They are just simply better candidates if they have everything else the same as you, but they also have experience. They're just a better candidates. They have the ability to be selective. What I would encourage you to do is, if you have no internship experience, is to apply at some smaller companies that may not be as competitive as Amazon. You know, everybody kind of shotguns, fires off applications to big companies online, and then just expects to get an internship. And that's just a very difficult way to get an internship, in my opinion. I think it's very difficult to get an internship that way. And as I mentioned earlier to the other guy, you really gotta get that second level. And any internship experience is, especially paid. You should get a paid internship, but that's my qualifier. But any internship experience is better than no internship experience. And what I recommend people is, get whatever internship you can, after your freshman and sophomore year, so that way your junior year, you can take that really good internship that's ideally for the company you want to work for after you graduate. But it's Amazon. They have a lot of opportunities. They have a lot of people that are being competitive, and they're evaluating the quality of the candidates they have, and if they have one that has more experience, then who's to blame them for choosing the person with more experience whenever you have none? And I wouldn't take it personally. I would just maybe adjust my expectations. I mean, some people do land internships with Amazon without any internship experience beforehand, but a lot of people don't. Most people don't. And that's the case for a lot of companies. Another thing I encourage you to do is go to the big career fairs, like the SWE conference and NISB conference, and your regional events for IKE and IEEE and ASME, and where they have career fairs, and big universities around you. Whenever they're hosting a career fair, maybe try to attend as well. And maybe you'll get lucky, and maybe you'll get an interview on the spot. But I wouldn't be too hurt about it. It's just it's competitive. They have a limited number of roles and a lot more applicants. So that's my take. But I wish you the best. And if you work, Amazon recruiters are pretty aggressive. So even if you don't get a job with Amazon right out of school, if you work for another company that does things similar to what Amazon wants to do, you might find yourself with an Amazon recruiter aggressively in your inbox later. So I wouldn't, if you really want to work for Amazon, I wouldn't get too beat up about it. Next question is, do engineering students really have zero social life? No, I had a great social life. It was pretty on par with the rest of my peers. Maybe I didn't go out as many times, but I had a great social life. I had a great balance. So I wouldn't say that you can't have a social life with engineering. Next one, BS in psychology, interested in a master's in mechanical engineering. I'm interested in mechanical engineering, but graduated with a bachelor's of science in psychology. Is it possible to get accepted to a master's program without a bachelor's in engineering? How far behind the power curve would I be if accepted? So is it possible to get accepted into a master's program without a bachelor's in engineering? Yes, but not. There's so many prereqs that you'd be missing with a bachelor's of science in psychology. I mean, basically, an entire 4-year degrees, maybe 3 years if you're lucky, worth of. You take out all the general education courses, 3 to 4 years of coursework behind. I would recommend getting a bachelor's in engineering, and then you don't really need a. Some people say that you need a master's in engineering to do certain R&D roles, super specialized roles, but you can do most engineering jobs and get compensated very similarly with a bachelor's in engineering, relative to a master's in mechanical engineering. Some people may disagree with me, but that's just my take. And how far behind the power curve would you be if accepted? Again, you wouldn't get accepted, but if you did, exceptionally far behind the power curve. So far behind the power curve. But yeah, I encourage you to get, if you want to do engineering, definitely consider getting an undergrad degree in engineering. And I know that might suck to hear that you can't go skip past the undergraduate level and get a master's, and that if you wanted to become an engineer, then maybe your bachelor's in science and psychology is kind of a sunk cost, but it kind of is. It's not really related at all to engineering. So maybe it might make you a really unique and interesting employee, though. Once you have 2 bachelors of sciences in psychology and engineering, you might have a leg up, because from other people that are graduating with their BS in engineering. So, yeah, I wish you the best of luck, but you're not going to really have any luck getting into a master's in mechanical engineering unless maybe you talk to a university that has a master's program and say, hey, what are the prereqs we need? And they give you a specific list of classes, and then you try to get in. But even then, that's not guaranteed. You'd be better off just getting a bachelor's in engineering. Next one, and this is the last one. What makes engineering so difficult? I'm quite far from applying to university, but I'm still looking around at potential careers. I've heard that engineering is a very difficult degree, but what makes engineering difficult? I think with medicine you have to understand a lot of concepts from different fields such as biology, chemistry, learn the ability to communicate well with people, both in a written and verbal aspect, and memorize a lot of information from those fields. Math is very difficult because you're learning a lot of very abstract concepts and writing proofs, but what makes engineering difficult? By the way, I do understand that it's a difficult engineer, but I'm asking what exactly makes it difficult. Thank you. So I would say that engineering is difficult because it is combining both of those things. And you're having to, all the things that you listed for medicine are things that you have to do as an engineer. You have to learn a lot of different concepts, and then you have to learn how to communicate them in a written and verbal aspect. Engineers need to be written and verbal and communicating. I mean, I can think of a very short list of jobs that you can do as an engineer where you can not have to talk to people and not be communicative. It's a very short list. And memorize a lot of information. Yeah, engineering, there's a lot of things you have to learn, memorize. But on top of that, then you have to learn how to solve a lot of problems and how to apply those things that you've learned, those broad concepts that you've learned, and how to apply them and solve specific problems and general problems. I'd say that, biology, medicine, there's a lot of memorization, and then you've learned it, and then and there's a little bit of problem solving, but engineering is in my opinion, a higher level of problem solving. You take say, for example, you take a business class and you're doing an exam, you have a business case, and you have to apply it, problems. But most of my classes that I took in business, is more multiple choice memorization type questions, but every once in a while there were application type questions, like in my economics program. But I just say that engineering, you're constantly doing that, and you got just so many different things to learn, so many very, very, very difficult broad concepts, and then you've learned the general concept, and then in your exam your professor has asked you to take the concept that you've learned and then apply it in a completely different way than the way that you've applied it or learned it in your exams. I mean, there's never like any repetition of this doing the same type of problem the exact same way whenever you're doing it from homework, from exam. It's very, very different. Another thing that makes engineering difficult is the quantity of labs. I'll just say that it's just a lot. I mean, from my experience, my lab classes were 1 credit hour classes, which meant that you're in lab for 1 hour a week, but I wasn't actually in lab for 1 hour a week. I was in the lab for 3 hours a week, and it was only 1 credit hour, so that I could afford the engineering program. So effectively, I would be registered for, say, 17 hours, but I had 3 labs, so add another 6. I was effectively taking 23 credit hours at one time. And the same concept of, for every hour in class, it's 3 hours outside of class. Yeah, I was spending an extra 9 hours outside of a class on a 1 credit hour class that, so it was just, there's a lot to learn. It's a lot of problem solving, a lot of application, not much you have to memorize things, you have to understand the general concepts, and then a lot of application and a lot of really trying to stretch your brain and trying to apply these things in ways that you may not have seen them exactly in that way before. And then it's very tedious. It's very, there's just a lot to do. And you have to be really precise whenever you're solving problems, or else you can't really BS your way through it. You really have to be very precise whenever you're going through it. So that's kind of an all over the place answer. I will argue that the engineering degree is going to be the most challenging degree at any university you go to. It's just, and that's just my take on why it's the most difficult. if anybody disagrees with me, I'd like to hear them explain why their degree program is more difficult than engineering. But I think that engineering kind of takes all the most difficult aspects of any degree program, and then you're putting them all together. The notion that you don't have to do any communication or writing or any super creative things as an engineer is just not the case. All those other things are rolled into an engineering program. But yeah, engineering's tough. It's a lot of coursework, a lot of mandatory coursework. You'll see that that there's more engineering coursework is generally more credit hours than a lot of other majors. It's a lot of time. That doesn't even count the credits that are labs that should actually be 3 credits instead of 1 if you're in the U.S. And again, having to learn the concepts, apply them, and then going into an exam and having to apply them in a completely different way than you ever applied it before. That's what makes engineering tough. And that's what makes engineers great problem solvers and great employees doing whatever. So, yeah, engineering's great. I recommend it to anybody. If you can stick through it, then you can do anything with your career. And that's why I did it. So, all right. Well, that's the podcast. If you like the podcast, share it with somebody. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, give it 5 stars. If you're listening on Anchor or anything, just share it, repost it, like it, follow it, download it, anything like that. That definitely helps me out. If you want to support the podcast, I told you how to do that earlier. But again, this is not something I do for money. It's because I am passionate about other people developing their careers. So if you have a question and you want my solicited opinion instead of all of these unsolicited opinions, write into engring.success@gmail.com. That's engr, just like it would show up in your course catalog, ing.success@gmail.com, and I will do my best to give you my take. But again, this has been the 15th episode of the Engineering Success Podcast, and I will catch you on the other side. Thanks.
I cannot explain the lameness. Never losing focus because I ain't chasing payments. Still playing in the basement while I'm working on arrangements. They heard the kid in 50 countries. Thank God that's amazing. But I'd rather thank Spotify. They put me on the station.